4 years ago this week, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were bestowed the titles of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and they haven't let us forget that. However, I think there is a title that is more appropriate for the two of them, and that is the Duke and Duchess, or King and Queen of Hypocrisy. Yes, Harry and Meghan have developed a huge reputation for saying one thing and doing another, or they, trash talk the royal family, yet demand that everybody use their titles. Heaven forbid we don't call them the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. And so on today's video, I'm going to kind of go over some instances where Harry and Meghan have made the huge mistake of kind of developing this reputation for being kind of two-faced, for saying one thing, doing another, and just really kind of developed, it kind of has developed a bad taste in people's mouths. So without further ado, let's get started. But if you haven't subscribed already, please do. Hi, my name is Brittany. This is Royal News Network, and we go over everything related to royals. So that's news, gossip, fashion, television shows, movies, and history. We do it all here. I do a lot of royal commentaries, and I'll be going to the Queen's Platinum Jubilee in the next couple of weeks. So if you want to get some more exclusive content for that, feel free to hit that subscribe button. I'll be giving more information out about that this week. And like I said, today's video, we are going to go over Meghan and Harry, the Duke and the King and Queen of Hypocrisy. Yes, Harry and Meghan, when they married 4 years ago, there was a huge groundswell of goodwill for them, of support, of encouragement. People were so enthused to see a woman of an African-American heritage marrying into the British royal family. People loved that. But over these last couple of years, the couple have really destroyed their reputation and the goodwill of the public. And a huge portion of that is them being hypocritical. They cannot stay on the same path. They tell the public to do one thing and they do another. And then they throw up their hands and go, well, why does nobody like us? And so Harry and Meghan have a really bad public relations issue. And part of it comes down to this thing where they just cannot stick the path and do what they say they're going to do. And so kind of the first instance of this, and I think this is pretty huge, is that Harry and Meghan, they have been bestowed titles by the British people as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, yet they only were in Sussex one official time, and in addition to that, they constantly harp on the royal titles. People always have to call them the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. Meghan in her book, The Bench, Meghan the Duchess of Sussex. Even on the Invictus Games Twitter account, they have to say the Duke, and they have to capitalize the T and the in the Duke of Sussex, the Duchess of Sussex. And at the end of the day, though, that kind of just, turns people off, because all they've done since leaving the royal family in 2020 is complain about it. So, for example, in the Oprah Winfrey interview, Harry and Meghan made some pretty serious racist allegations against the royal family. And yet, even though they harp on the institution, they refuse to drop the titles. They constantly going around calling themselves this. Now, that is their right, but if they really wanted to stick to their guns and be serious about, making it on their own, don't you think you would kind of drop those titles after a while? It just comes across as hypocritical if you're constantly disparaging the royal family and essentially calling it an awful institution that, denigrated you, constrained you, and all these sorts of things, and yet you refuse to drop the titles that they gave you. They don't want to be known as royalty, and they don't want to, they want to be independent and those sorts of things, and yet they can't drop that Duke and Duchess title. I would tell you that I would actually be much more appreciative and actually supportive of Harry and Meghan if they just dropped the Duke and Duchess of Sussex title. Because it's silly. They haven't even visited to Sussex. They've never lived in Sussex. And now they live in California, and they want everybody to call them the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and they even want their kids to have Prince and Princess titles, and their daughters never stepped foot in the UK. And their son hasn't, only spent a couple of months there. He hardly met any of his family members. And so the royal family in Harry and Meghan's eyes is just so awful. And yet they continue to use their royal titles and want them for their children. So, it comes across to people as a different motivation. So they're not really hating on the royal family. It comes across more as kind of greed. They use the royal family to get ahead while denigrating them at the same time. So it just really is a very hypocritical stance, and something people have come to really dislike about Harry and Meghan. Next thing is Meghan. Now, Meghan has categorized herself for many years as a feminist and independent woman. She does her own thing. She makes her own money. And yet, she married into the British royal family, taking a very conservative role, technically, being very much known as being a wife of a prince. And yet she constantly touts herself as kind of this feminist woman, even though she's following a very ancient trope of a woman who does not have as much means as her husband marrying into money. And so it just kind of comes across as when Meghan kind of talks about herself as a feminist, she wore that shirt one time, female is the future or something. But you just wonder is like, well, do you really believe it? Because really all the people see you do is use your husband's title to kind of get ahead in life, to make money, to go to X, Y, and Z event, and to kind of make all these production deals and those sorts of things. And so Meghan has really, I think, kind of shot herself in the foot in a way to the public, because she's claiming that she really, really does, love being a wife and a mother and everything like that. And yet Meghan interviewed Gloria Steinem, who is obviously a huge feminism activist. And Meghan just, she claims to be all these things, yet her sole future right now relies on using her husband and his family connections. And so it's not really like Meghan is doing all these things. She's relying on her husband's family to get her ahead. So that feminism thing doesn't totally wash, because she's not really independent. Like if her and Harry were just going by Prince Harry and just Meghan Markle, then I would give her props for that. However, she is using her husband's title, and ergo, she is kind of relying on him in a very old-fashioned way, and yet she portrays herself, or tries to, as a feminist. And so it just comes across as hypocritical to people, I think. Another way her and Harry do this is through their children. They just made their children such a flashpoint for people. I just think it aggravates people to death, or at least it does for me. So Harry and Meghan have, from the jump said, well, our kids are private. Nobody can know anything about them. We can't know where they were born, who attended them while they were being born. We can't know who their godparents are. It's, it needs to be secret. It needs to be private. And yet they demand titles for their children. In the Oprah Winfrey interview, they were very clear, or at least Meghan was. I think she very much wanted a prince and princess title for her kids. However, her husband is sixth in line to the throne. Her children will never see the throne. And the royal family was like, well, it's not in the letters of patent for them to get it. It made sense to amend the letters of patent for Prince William's children because they are the children of a future king. It just doesn't make much sense for your kids to be it. And now they even live in California, yet they're still harping on these titles. And I think, Meghan really, really wanted it. And I think they still want it, which is why they're trying to cozy up to the Queen. Although I don't understand why they're not cozying up to Charles, because once the Queen dies, Charles will determine whether or not they become a prince and princess. And I think as well, it's just kind of silly for them to be a prince and princess in Montecito and like to never go to the UK pretty much, to spend a lot of time away from there. It just doesn't make any sense for them to have those titles. But I think Harry and Meghan, well, specifically Meghan, very much wanted those titles because she wants to merch off of them. And I think that's just kind of very, very sad and shows you kind of where her mindset is in a lot of ways. Another issue is, environmentalism. Harry and Meghan have been very upfront about the fact that they really want to, quote unquote, save the environment. And, Harry has this company, Travelist, which I'm still not sure exactly what it does. But one of the programs it does has is you can see based on your ticket on the plane how much carbon emissions that seat gives out, even though the whole plane, like you can choose any spot on the flight, the same carbon emissions are still going to go out of that plane either way. So kind of choosing your seat based on your carbon emissions, frankly, is stupid. And, if you've flown any 13-hour flight, oh yes, first class, I would take it every single time. If you don't want first class because you're trying to be environmentally friendly, even though the whole plane is kind of giving off the same carbon emissions, I would gladly take your seat. But Harry and Meghan as well, they said first class is the most, carbon, you release the most carbon if you are in first class. Yeah, Harry and Meghan recently booked out the entire first class flight, bumping people out of first class into, Premier and, kind of the, what is it called? The other, so there's Premier and then there's the second tier below that. I can't remember what that's called. Premium? I can't remember. Anyways, and so they kicked people out of first class so they could book out the entirety of first class. And so Well, that's kind of hypocritical. You're basically telling people through this program that, the lower carbon emission the lower carbon emission seat on a flight is better for you, yet, they feel entitled to first class. And then they have also taken a ton of private jets, which is the worst, far worse than any of the first class. And so they were called out a lot for that. They took several private flight trips kind of during the summer after Meghan had Archie. They kind of flew everywhere, to Ibiza, to France. They flew to the Netherlands. I mean, they did a lot of little trips, and yet they're telling people to, pull back your carbon emissions, do this, do that. And people are just kind of like, that just doesn't totally wash. I think William has done a good job of kind of being very pro-environment and yet not be coming across as obnoxious about it. And Harry and Meghan have very much gone into that obnoxious camp. And it becomes just hypocritical. It's like, well, and this is the same for a lot of celebrities. It's not just Harry and Meghan. Like, you look at Leonardo DiCaprio. He does the same thing. He harps on about the environment. Yeah, he takes private flights all the time. And Harry said, well, my family, it's too dangerous for my family to fly. And it's like, you're sixth in line. You're not that important to like the whole of the British monarchy. You're just not. And so it just comes across again as entitlement, and then they try to kind of mask it by saying it's a security issue. No, you just want to take a private flight. Just admit that and go on. It's just, you have to be very careful, I think, in this environmentalism stuff to just go to, I like what Prince William does is that he's searching for a solution. And yes, sometimes he and Catherine take private planes. They, take first class. I don't have any issue with that. If somebody's like saying, well, do what you can, but we have this program Earthshot that is kind of searching for a solution to different things. That I think is more proactive than telling people don't take first class, because that provides too much carbon emission. But we'll book first class, so we'll take up those seats. So I just really think Harry and Meghan are just huge hypocrites when it comes to that topic. And honestly, if you follow that carbon emission thing from Travelist, you just don't. The plane's going to give off carbon emission either way. It doesn't matter where you sit at the end of the day. It really doesn't. So another issue when it comes to Harry and Meghan and this just kind of general hypocrisy is that Harry and Meghan kind of often harp on about their kids, and yet we never see them. So Meghan recently kind of did this thing. She signed on to this Marshall Plan for moms. So the Marshall Plan was very famous after World War II. It was the United States kind of, and I think other countries were involved in that as well, probably the UK and France, flew supplies into West Berlin because the Soviets had done a blockade, because most of Berlin was caught within East Germany, but there was an East Berlin and a West Berlin. And so the United States, along with other allied countries, because the Soviets had kind of blocked off the region, they were flying planes in like all the time to keep West Berlin afloat and to not have it cave to Soviet aggression. And this what ended up being called the Marshall Plan. It was very, very effective. It was kind of the start of kind of international aid in a way. In a lot of ways, that's how USAID got started. And so Meghan signed on to this plan, and she kind of released a statement talking about how hard it is for working moms. And this program, again, called out things that we already know, that, it's hard for moms to balance, their children and their job. It would be nice if every job had like a nursery on site, even though that probably requires a lot of extra permits and things for a workplace that they probably don't want to engage in. Like, there's reasons why things don't happen. And it's not just a magical wish where it's like, well, everybody should do it and there go, it'll happen. No, there's certain things, for certain reasons why most businesses don't have a nursery on site. It would be great if they did, but either it's not cost effective, it's not, they just, getting all the permits and everything together would be too difficult. They'd have a huge liability that they don't really want to have. So I understand from a business perspective why they don't do it. But I also understand from a mom's perspective that would be incredibly frustrating. However, hearing something like that from Meghan Markle, who lives in a $15 million mansion with like 16 bathrooms, I'm sure a full cadre of staff, nannies, housekeepers, kind of complaining about her lot in life and how we need to do better for moms, just does not come across well. Here's what she said. Families everywhere, and especially working moms, are asked to shoulder so much. This has only been heightened by the pandemic, with increased caregiving responsibilities, rising prices, and economic uncertainty. As it's been said many times, it takes a village to raise a child. Today, we're sending a message that child care isn't just a community imperative, it's a business imperative. Creating a stronger workforce starts with meeting the needs of families. Now, I'm actually all for that. I think flexibility in the workplace is great. You know, if your kid's graduating from preschool, if your child is sick, if your child, maybe broke a bone or something like that and you need to stay home for a bit. I think businesses, as best they can, should be very flexible for parents. However, I understand part of what this Marshall Plan for Moms is focusing on is like having a child care facility on site, which most businesses it's not feasible for most businesses to do. And honestly, women, if they decide to stay home and they leave their job, it's like, well, you built the nursing facility for nothing. And what if you don't have enough women to really make the nursing facility, something that you can actually work with? Like, there's a ton of reasons. And Meghan Markle coming across and talking about this, it's just like people just tune it out and go, well, what do you know? What do you know about this? Every whim I'm sure you have is catered to. And yet you're telling us that, we need to be better and that the village is raising your kids. Well, we don't even see your children. People question whether or not they exist on a daily basis. So why in the world are you making this a huge deal? She's also done this with family leave. And it's like, well, yeah, you took off 6 months and Spotify and Netflix are both ticked at you for doing that because you could work at the same time. I think of that former CEO of Yahoo, who went back to work after 9 days after having, I think she had twins even or something. And she went back to work. Okay, maybe it wasn't twins. I can't remember now. But she went back to work within a week of having her kids. And, not all women get that kind of support. They have to go back. They have to work. And, to put all that burden onto the government is not always going to fly. And it's like, well, why don't you, Duchess of Sussex, since you are, so engaged on this topic, why don't you create a nonprofit to help moms in the workplace? Why don't you figure out a solution that's actually pro-business and actually can work for people instead of just tacking it on and going, well, I feel your pain. I have 16 bathrooms and I do sometimes run out of toilet paper and I do have to call a maid to bring it to me. Like, nobody cares. Nobody cares. I mean, she has night nurses. She has a whole, I'm sure, slew of nannies to help her out and housekeepers and everything to do everything. She doesn't know what it's like to be a normal mom in that way. She does not. I'm sorry, she doesn't. If you're a normal mom and you have a responsibility not only for your kids, but for your husband, making sure food is prepared, cleaning the house, doing the dishes, walking the dog, all these sorts of things, Meghan Markle doesn't have to deal with any of that. I mean, she has to raise her children. I'm not, denying that, but who knows how much of that she does and how much of that she leaves to the nannies, because we don't see the kids. If you look at the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, they're very involved in their kids' lives. And how can you tell? Because the kids are very engaged with them in public events. It's very obvious. Louis reaching for William on the balcony. A, it's adorable. And B, it shows that boy spends a lot of time with his dad and is very connected to his dad. I haven't seen Harry or Meghan with their children. We haven't seen Harry holding his kids since the Christmas picture last year. And then before that, I think it was Archie in 2019. We have or maybe early 2020, we've hardly ever seen them touch their children. And that's another thing I kind of want to harp on when it comes to Harry and Meghan and their hypocrisy, is that they talk about their kids all the time. They want us to see them as maternal and paternal, yet we never see them with their children. And it just kind of reeks of not only just hypocrisy, but just weirdness. And it's like they want us to see them this way, yet we don't see them with their kids. So I was thinking with Meghan, and when she was at the Invictus Games, and it was a moms and babies event, and of course she didn't bring her kids, and then she's trying to play with this boy, and there's pictures of it, and it's like, well, honestly, I don't see you as maternal because I've never seen you really interact with your children. The only times I've seen you do that, it's been kind of awkward. And so it's just kind of doesn't come across well. And then Harry recently wearing the girl dad t-shirt, which A, means that all you have are girls, not that you have one girl. I mean, is he telling us Archie is transgender or something? I don't know. We never see the kid. Again, it just comes across as incredibly hypocritical and kind of just annoying and virtue signaling. It's pointless virtue signaling. Yes, look at us, we're parents. And they talk about all these parental issues. Yeah, we never see you with your kids. Like, I have respect for Kate because, you know, she kind of helped her daughter on the balcony when she kind of tripped and kind of fell a little bit. Charlotte, you know, just started, Kate tried to distract her and thought she was okay. And then Charlotte, you know, was like, Mommy. And Kate picked her up, kind of got her distracted, kind of moved her about, put her down again, and within about a minute. That was some that was some momming right there. That was some real momming. We haven't seen any of that from Harry and Meghan. Maybe we will at some point. But right now, we just don't really see that. And so it's just hard to connect with them in this thing. And yet they want us to connect with them as parents, yet we never see them with their children. And so this kind of hypocrisy, it's just kind of, it's kind of a separation between the things, and it's just not happening for them in their public image. Like, I just don't see them as parents. Not that they're not, but I've never seen them parent. Again, just Harry and Meghan just have this real way of just aggravating people to death. And it's just this hypocrisy thing that has gotten completely out of control. And you see this again also with the media. Okay, so I do write for a living. I watch the media. You know, how the media has changed in this country is very concerning. But you look at somebody like Omid Scobie. He claims to be an impartial journalist, yet he's so in Harry and Meghan's backsides. It's unbelievable. Basically, the British press call him Meghan's friend. Now, they don't even try to kind of justify what he does. They just call him Meghan's friend. And recently, he highlighted that, you know, the crowd in Liverpool booed William when he was there for the football game, even though that's, I guess, kind of a tradition in that stadium to do that in that city due to some things that happened in the 1980s. And so that's become a tradition. So they weren't specifically booing William and booing the national anthem. It's just something that they do all the time. Of course, Omid Scobie highlighted that, but he didn't highlight that, you know, William gave a damehood to Deborah Jones, who is a woman battling bowel cancer and is stage 4 and is now in hospice care. And he gave her the damehood. He went to her house. Like, he had this great interaction with her family. And Omid Scobie, he doesn't do anything about that, but he highlights Prince William being booed. And recently, I'm filming this on Sunday. I think this will go up probably Wednesday. So on Sunday, no, it was Saturday night, Omid Scobie wrote this thing as well, saying that Harry and Meghan, they decided that, you know, that they told the Queen they didn't want to be on the balcony. And you just look at that and going, are you joking? Like, nobody believes that. And where I'm going with all this is that Harry and Meghan harp all the time about misinformation, and yet they are the king and queen as well of misinformation. You know, looking at Archie's birth, telling people that, oh, she's in labor, even though she had already given birth. That's a lie. You just lied. For what reason? She gave birth early in the morning. You could just say overnight she went into labor and we welcomed a son and everybody's doing great. Why did you have to lie about it? And Harry and Meghan just go on this thing where they're dressing in misinformation. They hate the media. They hate social media. But what they hate is people criticizing them. So they just look incredibly hypocritical because some things that people are pointing out are accurate or just asking questions. And they're like, oh, well, that's misinformation. And the US media does this too, and it drives me bonkers. And Omid Scobie is somebody who perpetuates this because, you know, like I said, he posted this thing that allegedly Harry and Meghan didn't want to be on the balcony anyway, so they just, you know, they told the Queen that and they didn't really care. And I'm like, BS, I don't believe you. Again, my BS meter is going up. I did that in another video today, which will air probably tomorrow. But my BS meter is like going up because it's like, I just don't believe that. That was my doggy. And yet you tell me all the time that you are against misinformation, yet you perpetuate misinformation. You tell us all the time you're against misinformation, yet you allow Omid Scobie to perpetuate misinformation. Now, it could be totally true. Maybe they did tell the Queen that, but I highly, 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 highly doubt it. Because what is more visible for the entire Trooping of the Colors weekend but that balcony? And Prince Harry, William, Catherine, Charles, Camilla, and the Queen were the only people on the balcony in 2012. And you can't tell me that it doesn't hurt Harry to not be on that balcony again. That it doesn't hurt Meghan to not be on that balcony again. And to maybe not ever be on that balcony. because it does damage their image. It makes them look like they're the problematic element, which they are, but they don't want to be, so they lie to people and tell them, no, we never wanted to be on the balcony. We never wanted to be on the balcony. I just wanted to go, I don't believe you. And so they are the king and queen of misinformation, and yet they call the rest of us, you know, on social media or on YouTube, these kind of platforms, liars and people trying to damage their public reputation. I mean, Harry even complained about the number of comments on an article on the Daily Mail in his court filings. It's like, well, yeah, you kind of courted because you guys are the king and the queen of hypocrisy, and everybody knows it. If you could just be truthful, if you could just say and do the things you say you are going to do, you would have a much better public reputation. But Harry and Meghan just have stepped on one landmine after another when it comes to this. And I think they have really damaged themselves by not being somebody who can be trusted. Like, there's a lot of things when they say things that could be true, and I just don't trust it because I don't trust them. And so guys, let me know what you think of this video. What other kind of pieces of hypocrisy have I missed? I know there's more, but I was trying to film this video a little quickly. I kept waiting to see if at the Windsor Horse Show, the Cambridge kids and all the great-grandchildren would show up in the carriage, because that was reported, and I haven't seen it yet. So hopefully maybe it's on my phone when I'm done, because I really, really wanted to see that, and I wanted to do a video on it, but I can't see it. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Yes, please subscribe. And again, a lot of Jubilee coverage coming very, very soon. So I'll see you guys later. Bye.